Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, I should say. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast, and over speakerphone, I have the oh so wonderful and very, very talented Ian Alexy. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. And now, I've had you and your brother on the show many times in the past. I think our first interview was back in 2013, 14 maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And you've done amazing work since then. You've put out a bunch of albums with your brother. You're the other half of Hobo Nephews of Uncle Frank, but you're also Ian Alexy. Quite vast solo career that you have going on. And you just dropped a new single.
Good, yeah. It's called Making It Shine. It's actually first single from a record that is finished and will be coming out in the fall.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then you've also done a documentary as well.
Yeah, the documentary, also called Making It Shine, it's a series, so I've released the first part. It looks back at my years of touring and making music over the past decade and even more, but it also shows the present tense of what we're sort of going through now in the COVID 2020 era, or whatever you want to call this.
Yes.
So I'm creating it as I go, because I keep filming more stuff in the present tense that, is involved in the story. So it's kind of an ongoing series. And the second part of it, I'm hoping will be out very, very early September.
All right, perfect. And now you've said that your documentary kind of spans a decade of you creating music. Now, is this solo? Is this kind of focusing on Hobo Nephews, or is it a bit?
Both. And there's going to be one episode that focuses on the Hobo Nephews a little more exclusively, but it's, there's some Hobo Nephews footage in the first part as well. So basically how it happened was, when the lockdown started, I was, suddenly quarantined in my room, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And I started looking at my video footage, because about 10 years ago, I bought a video camera because I was doing a lot of touring and just a lot of music making, and I was thinking that all of this stuff is going by without being documented. So I should get a camera and start documenting. So this was years before I had an iPhone. I bought a video camera, and I just started taking it with me on the road and recording whenever, I had some downtime, or maybe we'd go on stage and I'd give the camera to a friend to sort of record some of the performance. But I didn't have a definitive goal in what I was going for, other than I knew that I was doing all this stuff, and I didn't want it to just go by without any documentation of it. So then when the lockdown began, I just started looking at the footage just because I had time to look at it. I wasn't planning on doing anything with it. And then as I started looking at it, I started thinking, maybe I have a documentary here, and I certainly have time to work on one. So I just started digging in, and initially, I thought I would just do 1 hour long documentary, but more I started working on it, I realized to do shorter parts would be better for me. It'd be more manageable and probably make a better product in the end.
Right. And you've released the first section. It's up on YouTube if people want to take a look. And now you do actually have a kind of music documentary out with your Hobo Nephews CD, The Traveling Show. Does this documentary kind of follow that format?
A little bit. That one was made by Joshua Priestley, who is a filmmaker and photographer, and he's also our friend and has worked with us for a long time. So it is like that in the sense that I've learned a lot of what I know about film from Josh, who made that. But it is a little different. I think that the approach is probably a little bit different, but there is some crossover, I think, just because the subject matter and because of, like I said, him not really intentionally, but maybe sort of unintentionally, he's kind of mentored me a little bit with film stuff.
Perfect. Learning from people, right?
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Excellent. And now, Ian, you're actually not the first artist to kind of jump into something a little different with lockdown and everything else. There are a number of artists out there that have kind of started podcasting or making videos or doing the online shows. I know you've done a couple online shows as well. How has that gone over?
It's great. Depending on how this thing plays out, I'm sure I'll probably be back to doing it in the fall. I've been lucky enough for the last month or more to actually be playing some live shows in front of people. I'm assuming that when the fall comes and the weather changes, that's probably not going to be the case. So it was great. I mean, the first one I didn't start doing it right away. First, I sort of watched what other people were doing, and I sort of learned from other people's failures and successes. The first one I had went spectacularly well, and it was, it made me emotional, really. It was like connecting with all these people online because I think at that point we were all really locked down, so it was a rough time, and I was really happy to have that connection with people. And the other advantage of it is that I'm from New Jersey and I've toured all over the country, so I have these little smatterings of fans and friends spread out all over the place. So suddenly with an online show, people that don't usually get to see me, especially my people in New Jersey, are getting to see me play live, which normally they don't because, I only get out there, other than Minnesota and Wisconsin where I play regularly, the other places, I get there once a year, if that. So that was the real advantage of the online stuff is sort of connecting with people wherever they are. You're not limited by your location.
Right. Do you ever think about maybe doing a hybrid show of kind of hauling your camera with you and filming where you're actually playing with other people?
Oh, yeah, I have thought about that. Yeah, that would be good. I think Teague and we had a private Hobo Nephews show in July, and we tried to do that. There was some technical difficulty.
Oh, no!
I wasn't the one trying it, but someone else there was trying to accomplish it, and it didn't happen. But, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'll have to get the unlimited data plan for my phone.
Oh, yep, the bane of everyone's existence, right? The unlimited data and then the money flow.
Right.
Wonderful. How many sections of this documentary are you going to put out? Do you have a number cap on that, or are they finished?
I'm planning on 4.
Okay.
But because the nature of it is like episodes, like a TV show almost, like a documentary TV show, it could keep going if I wanted it to, but I'm committed to 4, and then I'll see where I'm at once I get those completed.
Yeah. And now, Ian, I'm a filmmaker myself. I went to school for it, so I know how long it can take to go through footage and stuff like that. And, you'd said you kind of started it during lockdown, and that seems like a great way to spend the time, basically. But how long has it actually taken you to go through all this footage? You said you have a decade of footage?
Yeah, I couldn't. I wasn't measuring the time, but many, many, many hours. Yeah. And the second part of it is mostly completed, and the narrative is written, and I've got most of the footage. But now life has gotten a little bit busier. The time factor of it is really enormous. But I am dedicated to at least getting those 4 parts done.
Seeing it through until the end.
Absolutely. I've also started, I got a little sidetracked because I've been making a video for the song Making It Shine. So that'll be out this week, actually.
Wonderful. Excellent. And now, Ian, I know that you're pretty much a DIY kind of guy. Have you been really just doing this yourself throughout the quarantine and everything else?
The film part or?
Film part, narration, any of it.
Well, actually, a lot of it, but with the narration, my mother has been helping me with the written part. She's a writer, and she's a really good editor. She has all the grammar mistakes and stuff that I would normally make. I'd send it to her, and she goes through it all and fixes things for me. So she's been kind of my main collaborator on the film. But like on my new record, there's lots of people involved. I worked in 2 different studios with 3 different engineers, and there's 4 or 5 other musicians on it. So in terms of my music, it's, even though it's a solo album, it's still really collaborative.
Right. Anybody that I know on your new album?
Well, it's mostly my band, The Deserters. So
Okay.
Mike Cini on the drums, Ben Peterson and Johnny Tim. A friend of mine, a guitarist named Mike C. Smith, who I grew up with in New Jersey, plays some lead guitar on the song "Making It Shine." But yeah, I think that's all the musicians that are on it.
All right, excellent. Well, now I have to wait for your album, right?
Yeah. It's actually been done for a while.
Oh, okay.
And I getting ready to release it. Look, usually the thing that a record release, in my experience, has been hinged on is having a release show and timing the release show with getting the physical product, the CD or the vinyl, ready in time. Sort of the most difficult part of it. So now that is sort of taken out of the equation. So I just decided to start releasing it online, with some singles. And so in a way, it's a drag to not have a release show, but in a way it's also easier because you can focus on just getting the music out there and kind of promoting it online.
Right. And I've definitely noticed a swing in that. I mean, you and I, we've worked together for many years, actually. I mean, I was your photographer at one point in time, a little bit, and then I, sold your merch and stuff like that. And I've definitely noticed a swing in just how people consume. It's definitely more driven towards the online and the MP3 and, gotta have it now. Have you kind of seen that swing as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We, even though CD sales, overall have almost grinded to a halt, we've never really stopped selling them, and I've never stopped selling them, but it's definitely a smaller amount, and, other things like T-shirts primarily become the main sort of seller at the merchandise table. But a lot of times people love the music. They want some sort of souvenir, or maybe they just want to support you. So a CD sale might happen. The person might be listening to the record on Spotify, but they might still buy the CD just to show support, or just, like I said, to have some kind of souvenir.
Perfect. With Spotify, now I remember, this is probably a few years back now, you had come out with this kind of longer thing about Spotify and how they don't necessarily pay the artists to be on Spotify, but you can negotiate in some way for Spotify to pay you for your plays. How has that been going over for you? I know, I'm taking it back.
I changed my tune on it somewhat.
Okay.
I think that the rates for streaming royalties are very low, and Spotify, I'm really not an expert on it. I actually don't even use it. I use Apple Music because I just sort of think that's a better format, but or I guess the same format, but a better platform. I just find it easier to use, whatever. But it's difficult, but I've changed my tune on it in the sense that if you have all your bases covered in terms of your copyrights and ownerships of the music, then across all the different platforms that it's streaming, it does start to amount to some money in royalties. And the other nice thing about it is that it can be happening all the time, whereas like with CD sales, a lot of that is just at shows and a handful of record stores that the CDs were in. With streaming, anybody can access the music at any time. And even though the royalties are very small, and I'm hopeful that will go up in the future, it's still the kind of thing it's constantly happening, and it does eventually add up.
Good. A penny saved is a penny earned, right?
Yeah.
Has the internet really helped you kind of gain a newer audience? Have you seen that kind of upswing in your audience participation?
It's hard to say. Maybe now that I'm not doing shows and I still am sort of finding some new people online,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that was happening all over. But I think what really, in my experience in my career with the Hobo Nephews and everything, what really happened is the following that we have online is came from touring and getting in front of people
Mm-hmm.
and other outside sources. Like when our song Old Number 4 went viral, it went viral because CBS Sports did a story about it, and that caused it to get thousands of plays on YouTube. But it usually, in order for something significant like that to happen, it usually takes some kind of outside source or some sort of exposure other than just putting it on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the followers that the Hobo Nephews have, it's because we were on the road for 10 years playing every place imaginable in the country. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that got us a lot of fans, and the Spotify and all the other streaming sites for the Hobo Nephews, we always, every month we see the numbers, and we always, even though we haven't made a new album, we did put out a live album, but we haven't made a new studio album in over 5 years. We're still being listened to all the time online. And I think that's just mostly because of the work we put in on the road.
Right, right. And definitely that's what it is. I mean, it is work. It's not, you go play a show and it's, this grand old time. I mean, it is your job, basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of really cool to hear because I think people have this idea that when a musician or an artist, I mean, any stage artist kind of puts on a show that it's all fun and games. But really, at the end of the day, that is your job. Like, I get up and I go to work at a car dealership. You get up and you go to work on stage. It's kind of that same kind of caliber. So thank you for putting that into perspective.
Yeah. Well, it is still fun though too. but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's been my life's work. That's for sure. It's been my most consistent job that I've ever had by far.
Right. And you've held day jobs before, haven't you?
Any job I've ever had, I've only taken it on the premise that it's not going to interfere with my music career. So I've had plenty of other jobs, but I've never had like another career.
Okay. Music.
I went to school for music. I wanted to be a musician from the time I was 12 and probably before that, but I'll take another job when I need to. As far as a career, I've never really been invested in anything other than being a musician.
Oh, right, right. And, that dedication and that time put into it definitely shows. I mean, you have this beautiful stage presence that, I can hear the music kind of flow out of you, whether it's your originals or whether you're doing a cover song. And even when you and your brother play together, there's this wonderful, like, back and forth that you guys have that is just enthralling to watch and to kind of get the crowd going and the hype. So I can definitely see that it's a career choice for you. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. That's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. And now, Ian, you said that you went to music school. Now, was that in New Jersey or out in California?
In Boston.
Okay.
Berklee College of Music, not to be confused with Berkeley, California, but yeah, it's in Boston and Back Bay. It's one of the most, I don't know how they let me in, but it's one of the most prominent music schools in the world, I think.
Yeah.
But I worked my way in there after high school, and I did 3 semesters there, and that was great. It was, in a way, I was kind of in over my head because you've got all these kids from around the world, a lot of the best young musicians from around the world, really. So I was able to keep my head above water. I did those 3 semesters, and then I transferred to a liberal arts school in Vermont called Goddard, and then I finished there. But music was still my major at Goddard.
All right, very cool. Well, I applaud the fact that you made it 3 semesters through Berkeley. That's, like you said, a very prestigious school, so good for you.
Yeah, a lot of it was like spending time in the practice room crazy time, like 6-8 hours a day.
Okay.
They have these little practice rooms, and you just go in there and work on your stuff, because that's kind of what everybody else is doing that you're in school with. So
Yeah.
it's not very good for your social life, but it was good for my guitar playing.
All right, there you go. And it shows. You're an incredible guitar player.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. And now, Ian, you've released a number of albums throughout your career. I mean, I still have one of your first albums that was kind of more jazzy, and then, your second album was a little bit more kind of folk rock in a way, and then it's kind of progressed from there. How has your music changed throughout the years?
Well, I'm always there's a sort of sameness to it, on one hand, in that it's all kind of coming from me, and I'm a singer, songwriter, and guitarist, but there's also, I'm usually searching for something new. Like, just like any music fan, you're usually getting into some new thing that's exciting to you, and you've got your favorites. You've got the stuff that you've always been into and you will always be into. But then there's always something that's sort of a little different, that's like stimulating to you. So as a musician, it's the same thing. Like, I've got my core of the stuff that I absolutely love, like Tom Petty and Bob Dylan, and but then I'll be listening to, like, lately I've been kind of getting into, like, and I've been into this before, but like some West African music and like the Talking Heads and stuff that's more rhythmically adventurous, and because I feel like I want a little bit more of that in my music.
Oh.
So I'm always searching. I want each record to be different, because I feel like you have to keep moving forward in order to even to just maintain, let alone grow. Because I feel like, as a fan, with certain artists, they'll come out with an album and I'll love it and I'll listen to the heck out of it, and then they come out with the next album, and I like that too. But it's, if they haven't sort of moved on to something else, it's like, okay, I kind of already know what they're doing or what they're going to do. You can sort of see the parameters of what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. And everybody has that. Every artist has that. But I think that the artists that are always pushing those boundaries, even if they sort of fail sometimes, that's a lot more interesting to me, and that usually keeps me interested as a fan. So that's what I try to do as an artist.
Yeah, ever evolving.
And it's funny because, like, this is mostly in the Duluth music media, but every time I put out, and maybe that's because the Hobo Nephews are well known in Duluth, but usually every time I put out a solo album, the review will say that I did a 180 from what I usually do, which I guess they mean is the Hobo Nephews. Like, even like the last album was the Deserters album was very Tom Petty influenced, who's like one of my main influences from when I was a teenager, and actually the sound of that EP, Deserters, I feel like is so true to who I am and the kind of music that I love. And then when the reviews in Duluth came out, it was like, she did a total 180. This folk guy is trying to rock, and it's just funny to me how people really like to compartmentalize things in their mind, compartmentalize people. So. Right. I enjoy trying to avoid expectations, or, go beyond them or sidestep them, or just, I don't know, confuse people that are closed-minded.
Well, that's a good place to be, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you keep doing the same thing, people won't even notice when you put out an album. It's just like, oh, he's doing that again.
Right. And isn't art supposed to make people question or make people feel something?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. And now, Ian, if I'm not mistaken, you had spent some time in Africa, didn't you?
I did. That was while I was in Goddard College. I did a field semester, but I did get college credit for it, but it was not any sort of program. It was just me and my friend hitchhiking around and finding musicians to teach us, which was relatively easy there, because when you're a young white person walking around in West Africa, you obviously stand out. So people were constantly approaching us, asking us what we were doing there, and we would tell them and I was carrying around a guitar, that we were there to learn West African music. So then they would direct us to people. And yeah, so I took guitar lessons there and several different drum lessons with different parts of the country.
Yes. Wow. Very cool. What was your biggest takeaway from spending time in Africa?
Oh man, I think that just like the spiritual side of it was really just to go to another part of the world where the culture is completely different. You look completely different from everybody, and I was so young at the time that I wasn't very afraid of anything because I was too young to know any better. More just like the idea that you can go somewhere else in the world, without any sort of security net, no, like I said, we weren't part of a program, like we weren't meeting up with another school in Africa or instructors. We were just going there without a net. Just the faith that we were sort of guided to the right people and the right things, and that we survived it and had a great time. The big takeaway was just more of a sort of faith in the universe, that things will work out when you put your mind to it and have your mind and your heart in the right place.
Yes. Oh, excellent, Ian. Excellent. And has that kind of spiritualness through the music kind of transcended into your own?
Probably. It's not something that you can really be conscious of, because like when I'm writing music or working on music, I'm not really thinking. I'm sort of putting myself aside and just trying to let the music through, kind of a thing. That's sort of the kind of songwriter I am. So even like the creative process itself, I think, is inherently spiritual. So I don't know that I think that experience did affect it, but not in a conscious way, more just in a kind of organic way, I guess.
All right. Wonderful. And organic is kind of what you do and who you are.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent, excellent, Ian. All right, so you just released a single, Making It Shine. You've got a music video out for it. Your new album is kicking off this fall. You're doing some more online shows. What else do you have in the docket?
Well, the documentary, that's pretty much it. I play with Mark Gartman, where we do Grateful Dead music. So that's a lot of fun. It's really good for my guitar playing because I'm doing the lead guitar stuff with that, which is very challenging, but very fun too.
Perfect. And you're actually a very talented cover artist as well.
Yeah, with that, that's one of the nice things about my music education, like at Berkeley, is like being able to deconstruct something and put it back together so that it suits myself and my limitations, really. Like, for example, I did a version of Video Games by Lana Del Rey, and that's out online if anyone wants to hear it. That obviously I can't sing in the same register as Lana Del Rey, and the song itself, there's a lot of sort of electronic components, and I'm mainly a guitar player. But just understanding music, it's like it's still a song, and here's the melody, and these are the chords. So, I moved it into another key that fit my voice better, and the rest of it just sort of naturally happens because, again, I'm not going to be able to sing like her. It's going to come out like me. So then that automatically creates this different vibe, and even to some extent changes the meaning of the lyrics because it's coming from a man instead of a woman. And it's when the feeling changes, even the meaning of the words can change to some extent. I think that the trick to it is maybe not trying to be so much like the original version, just allowing it to sort of change and come out the way it does through you, rather than trying to make it exactly like the original. Because if you did it exactly like the original, what's the point? Because someone can just listen to the original.
Right, right. And Ian, actually, you're not the only artist to talk about limitations, but limitations aren't a bad thing. It's just what you can do with the gifts that you're given, or your talent or your education that you have. So you're not the only artist to bring that up to me this week, and I think that's kind of fabulous that artists are kind of looking at limitations as not a negative thing, but as almost like a positive thing. Like, this is my path, this is what I can do, and I can always learn from it and kind of adapt and change.
I agree. I'm always trying to get better and expand on my limitations, but your limitations are where you're at. So I wish I could remember this book, but I read a book in college about that, and the point where you settle on what you have, your limitations being your skill, the equipment you have, with music, the studio you're in, or maybe you're just recording on your laptop. But when you make that decision to create, you're settling on those limitations in that moment, and the limitations sort of define what you're creating. Exile on Main Street by the Stones, they recorded in a basement in some, mansion in Paris, but it sounds like a basement, it sounds like it could be anybody's basement. The limitations of that studio are what make that album sound so unique. No matter what the situation is, when you decide to create something, you're settling on what you got in that moment, and that kind of defines it.
Right, right. But it sounds like it also makes it unique and makes it your own as well.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
All right, excellent, Ian, excellent. So that's really cool that you're kind of venturing into the Grateful Dead territory a little bit. I've heard you sing Tom Petty before. You've got the video game single out. Any more kind of adventures into this cover artist realm for you?
Not really.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll do other covers. A lot of times a song will just hit me. I'd be like, ooh, I could imagine myself singing that. Like, the other day I was listening to this new album by Lori McKenna. I hope I have her name right. I think that's it. And there were some songs on there where I thought, oh, I could imagine myself singing this. And again, the covering a female artist, it for me is really interesting, because you initially get this different thing, just the male, female, the sexuality changes, the pitch is going to get lower for me. So there's this instant, just different thing that happens naturally. As far as the Grateful Dead and Tom Petty stuff, a lot of that is to perform for a live audience. Like with the Dead stuff, their music is so prominent in a live setting. So the interest there is really performing, rather than like, I don't see myself really like recording a Grateful Dead cover, but Tom Petty's kind of the same, because although I would actually, maybe I would record one of his songs, but his stuff is done so perfectly. I'm not sure what else I could do to it, but it's really fun to do live because it excites an audience, and it gets me excited because he writes such perfect songs. I mean, just absolute, and not in a way that feels like perfection. It feels like he just like rolled out of bed and picked up a guitar and wrote it, but it has this sort of nonchalant brilliance to it that it's like, I don't know how you could improve upon Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It'd be pretty hard.
Well, Ian, I will be the first to admit I enjoy your cover of, I can see the music video for it now. Tom and the band are in like this kind of futuristic 80s world. I wish I could remember the cover's name right now.
Yeah,
but
you got lucky.
Yes, you got lucky. Thank you. I absolutely love your cover of that song, and there are parts of me that wish you would record it and put it out. But
well, maybe I will. I mean, that one I could imagine changing around a little bit, and But thank you for that. I'm glad you like it.
Well, I do. I enjoy your music, original and not. Good luck with the show. That sounds like a fabulous idea. Are you guys going to be live streaming it at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah. Every week at the Ripple, Mark Gartman does the Grateful Dead thing, and I sort of stop in here and there when he asks me to.
Perfect. Excellent, Ian. Excellent. I can't wait to see the rest of your documentary. It's up on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out. And then your album is going to drop later this fall.
Yeah.
All right, perfect, sir. Well, have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to talk to me.
Thank you, Crystal. I really appreciate it.
All right, have a great day.
Okay, you too. Take
Bye.
care.